Welcome back, folks. Today we've got a special guest and also a modification for your standard forks, and a budget modification at that. I go into detail on fitting the modification and how it was developed, along with the problems encountered along the way and the alterations that we had to make. So sit tight and I hope you enjoy. So Graham's going to give us some riding thoughts with a 10mm spacer that he's machined, and his first impressions of his modification.
Well, I've just ridden it here and I was very surprised and very pleased. I aimed for all the big bumps and you don't get that initial bang when you hit the larger bumps, so I was very pleased with that. And I've accelerated quite hard on fairly steep hills going up hills, and it's not topping out, so I think I've got them just about right with 10mm of extra preload.
So both bikes sat side by side, mine without preload spacers and the Silver Spectre with spacers. Graham, do us the honours. You can see immediately, obviously mine's standard suspension, and it's dropped further through the top yoke, so they're for about 10mm longer in total, but it just with Graham sat on it uses up quite a lot of the suspension. Give us a bounce, Graham. Even just a bit of bouncing is nearly using up all of its travel.
They're feeling very easy to bounce on.
Yep. So Graham's come up with a simple method of adding preload, but also retaining the nice detail of the original fork caps. So that's standard fork caps, as you'll have. Graham's has also got the standard fork caps, but he's machined a preload spacer for inside. Do the honours. Still sits down, but not to the same extent. Give us a bounce. Still using quite a bit of the travel, but there's just a bit more resistance there.
Just feels a tiny bit heavier at the beginning.
Yep. The preload spacers have arrived as if by magic. So I'm just going to show you how I'll go about fitting these and what's inside your forks as we get on with doing it. So here we go. First of all, I'm going to, you don't necessarily need to do this, particularly if you use a spanner on your top caps, but just to give me a bit of extra room to work with, I'm just going to move the handlebars over, so we will see together if this works. Probably not, actually. I'm not going to be able to slide them further enough out of the way, so I'll just take them all the way off. I'm tempted just to leave them there, but I know if I do, something will go wrong, so I will I'm going to risk it, folks. Don't necessarily do what I do, do as I say, so have somebody support them or strap them down safely. Right, before removing the top cap, you want to loosen your top yoke bolt. It may take some getting your head around, but even though these are steel and you wouldn't think they make any difference, the pressure that is exerting on this can apparently affect the tightness of this by a small fraction. I'm not an engineer, so I won't go into exact details. So we'll loosen that off. I've still got my marks on from when I first took these off, so easy for me to retorque them. does loosen up quite a lot when you release that gap there. Right folks, you may notice the bike's back together but I still have the spacers in my hand. That's because it's the day after the one before, and I fitted the spacers with a 10mm preload. However, the top cap wouldn't quite close by about 2mm, and the sprung, or the spring steel washer I should say, inside the tube, at 10mm it just fouls where the tube internally goes a little bit narrower. So to be on the safe side, I've had Graham reduce these down to 6mm. So this distance here is 6mm, stamped them up so as not to be mistaken. And I'm going to fit them again. This will provide plenty of clearance for the washer inside and won't cause any problems. What we might experiment with eventually is, if this isn't enough preload, I suspect it will be. It's basically 6mm is roughly the same as the distance of adding 2 clicks to your rear shock absorbers, so I think it will make a difference. It won't be as noticeable as 10, but we shall see. We could always tap this, thread it, and just neck down the sprung washer a little bit, and then screw that into here and hold it all together as one, and then extend them, and that would get rid of the problem because it would fit it inside the tube. I'll show you inside the tube of what it looks like in detail when I take them back in bits. But yeah, I'm going to go for the 6mm for now and see how we go on, but I'll show you the problem that we encountered yesterday. Before I carry on, I just thought I'd show you this time around, jacked it up only a touch so the weight's just taken off the front tyre. It's a very handy little jack. It's only a cheap one from eBay, but does its job. It's got these little supports that go up under the rails. Handy thing to have. So let's try again. I've already loosened this, so that just needs to come off. Put a longer bar on it, just makes it easier to give you something to get hold of. Oops. If you want to avoid marring this, you could put tissue over the end of your, it's up inside your socket. Well, I'm not too fussed. Don't mind seeing proper working marks. They're meant to be taken out, so here we go. Be careful this time not to let it spring out on me. I've took the weight of the bike, makes a difference. So there we go, once again. The cap, the washer, which is, as I said, sort of sprung steel, it feels like, made from a spring steel. Not that it's got any springing to do, but just because that's hard stuff. Now let me show you down. I'll remove this and I'll show you what's going on inside. So that's what's going on inside. The thread is undercut. Graham informs me that's a common engineering practice in order to get a full cut on the threads all the way down, so your tap can get all the way in, or your machine, whatever, and then it widens out. That's where the washer sits, and then you'll see that it just bevels in ever so slightly. See where it catches, slightly different surface. A little bit of rust staining in there as well, look. And so you've probably got about 8mm clearance on the bottom of the 8 or 9 until the washer starts to stick. So I've had him, as I've said, make the spacers down to 6mm just to be on the safe side, to keep them in that keep them in this area here just underneath the thread and avoid it getting stuck in the lower part of the tube. Interesting to see in there, show you down. So let's go ahead and get these in. Final up close for you. He's not polished them up or whatever. These ones are a little bit mad because we've had to make a couple of alterations on them going along, both chopping this down, and we also had to just work on this collar a bit just to bring it down a touch. So these are sort of prototype ones. Anybody wanting them will be, they still won't be polished up, but they won't have any of the slight machining marks that we've got on this one. Just take off any remnants. So pop this back in. Then the washer, I'll just make sure I put it back in the same way it came out. Probably doesn't matter, but just to be safe. And as I showed before, or I may not have done, I can't remember, that just tucks in there for a nice secure fit. Just a slight bit of play just to make sure that it does indeed go in. I'll just put a little bit of oil on your O-ring just to make sure that slides in nicely. It's easier with a longer bar just to apply pressure and get 2 hands on it whilst keeping your thread secure, not crossing it. There we go. You shouldn't feel, you'll feel resistance pushing back from the spring, but you shouldn't feel any, it shouldn't be hard to turn that in. You shouldn't really have any resistance on the threads all the way down. You shouldn't really feel any resistance. If you do, then you may have crossed it, so take good care and come back out and try again. So there's no resistance, or very, very little resistance. A bit more as the O-ring just starts to seat. And as you can see, all the way down. I'll just nip it up. I'm just going using my elbow torque wrench just to nip it more than it touch more than perhaps it was from factory. So that's that side done. I'll do the other side. I won't show you that one as well unless there's any problems, and I'll finish up and perhaps go for a ride if it's stopped raining. So at the time of publishing this video, I've got about 70 miles on the bike with the spacers fitted, and Graham will probably have a little bit more by now. And as he said at the beginning, we are both pleasantly surprised. You may be wondering how he fitted 10mm spacers and mine didn't quite fit at 10mm, and I've gone for 6. I went for 6 having measured the space inside just to be on the safe side. I think you would get away with 8 or 9mm because they were only just shy of closing. Graham did have the experience with one of his where it was a little tricky, and after a bit of winding the top cap in and out, he did get it to fit, and he has got his in with 10mm. He wouldn't want to supply the spacers with 10mm because it is unlikely that they'll fit. I tried a few times with mine and just didn't like how it felt. I just thought it's too close to the tube. I'd rather be on the safe side with 6mm, and to be fair, it's doing its job. I'm quite surprised at the difference it's made, and I think the main reason is because the bike is supplied ready to ride and to feel correct from the dealer, so as when you go for test ride etc, it doesn't feel overly stiff, it feels correct, and you're happy with it on a short test ride. But I think as the suspension beds in, it loses that bit of spring tension and just creates a bit of a rattly feel, a bit of a loose feel over imperfections in the road and short sharp bumps etc, and these spacers just seem to help get rid of that, and I've not noticed it since on the riding that I've done, so very, very pleased. I would be keen to hear from people who have fitted similar modifications, such as the various adjustable preload spacers that are available from the likes of Tech, and just see what your thoughts are on those, and if you've had a similar pleasant experience, and if you're happy with how the stock suspension rides with those, or whether you're looking at further upgrades such as the YSS kits. So yeah, comment below and let us know. Now, if anybody's interested in a set of these spacers, I'll put Graham's details below and the price that he's asking for them. I think the ones he will be supplying, as I've said, will be the 6mm version to be on the safe side. But yeah, details below for him, and get in touch and let him know what you're after. In addition to these spacers, he makes a lot of bling items out of brass and alloy or whatever you require. Here are some of the items fitted to his bike. So a brass bolt along with a brass washer so as not to mar the surface of your screen mount there, brass bar end weight, and a brass case plug. Now around to the side of the bike, these are his extended hero blobs, I think he calls them, and also his prototype oil filler plug. His various designs have changed and he can make custom things for you. He does have a Facebook page, so I'll put his details below and you can contact him for any bits you require. So that's all folks for today. Thanks very much for watching. If you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you don't already, please subscribe. And most importantly, please ride safe.